But I remember we were all outside. We had a big apricot tree in the front yard. We'd go pick all the apricots every July. We're all out. We had a big back porch. We're all out there pitting apricots. We pit them all to get them ready. And Father came out and was like, I want everybody in the living room. And we were like, oh, okay. This is, it happened a lot. Sometimes it was just to tell everybody thanks. Sometimes it was to read a scripture. It happened in the middle of the day sometimes.
Oh, wow.
And so we all went in. We sat down. The other family was with us as well. And they came in and they sat down. And he was like, Joseph is in the hospital on life support.
Yeah.
And he was going swimming with some friends. And he had gone under for too long.
Oh, gee.
But I remember just like breaking down. Because they were like, we don't think he'll make it. And he's like, me and Mom, or Mother Rev, she's my mom, he's like, we're gonna go down to the hospital. And I think this was Wednesday. It was either Wednesday or Thursday. And so they went, and I remember it was right after the 4th of July, and people were still doing fireworks and stuff around the town. And it was raining. It started raining that night. I remember going out, just standing on the porch, and there was fireworks going, and it was raining. And I remember just praying, like, please bring him back, please, if anything, please bring him back. And that Sunday, everybody had gone to church. A lot of the girls had gone earlier to save seats, because we'd go save seats for the entire family, because there was a lot of us. So some of them had gone earlier, and then we'd gotten the call at 12:15 that he passed away. Yeah. So a lot of the girls were in church, and they announced it.
In church?
In church.
Oh, wow.
And that's how
they found out.
Oh. I stayed home that day. I cried my eyes out. I stayed home. And I remember just sitting in the living room and just being like, okay, just get through it. Just get through it. But they brought his body home, and we had his funeral that Wednesday.
So he was still able to be like buried out there, and still have you guys out there, even though he had been out of the community.
Yes,
it was good that they let that.
Supposedly 2 weeks before they'd scheduled for him to get baptized back into the church.
Oh my gosh.
So he was planning on coming back then. Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I think that was probably the most vivid time of my entire childhood. I remember we had a horse named Poncho. He was my favorite. He was a gelding. And I would ride him everywhere. I'd like put just like a rope around his neck. So he was trained really good, and I would just raise him all over. And Joe also would ride him. And I remember feeling like I couldn't have fun, or like I'd feel guilty for riding him or having joy.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't with us.
Yeah.
But I didn't really understand it, and that was the first time I'd met my real dad.
Did he come out to go to the funeral?
He did, and I gave him a hug, but I didn't know it was him.
Oh wow.
Really?
No one told me it was him, so he was just another guy to me.
Oh wow.
But somehow you felt a connection enough to give him a hug, though, it seems like.
Yeah, well, a lot of people were giving hugs. I mean, we were crying, we were emotional, and we were standing in the viewing line, and a lot of people were giving hugs. And I remember he hugged Mom, because they told me after that was my dad. But he came through, and I just hugged him, and kind of just, like he was another guy. Wow. And he sat down away from the family, and I sat there on the front row. I remember I held Joe's picture, because we had a picture of him. And I held it, but I was really angry because they didn't really tell memories of Joe. They talked about scripture. They read the Book of Mormon, and they read about how we should be faithful, and so it was like not really about him a lot. So that was something I was really angry about.
Yeah.
And then the graveyard was right up from the meeting house, so they loaded him in the vehicle and they took him up there. I remember they sang "I Stand All Amazed." That's like one of my favorite songs.
At the graveside.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling like he was there singing, like I could feel him there.
Oh yeah.
But I remember this one part. My older sister Rosie was standing there as they were lowering the grave, and she was just crying. And we had like the flowers, a lot of us wore like the white flowers, and she was like just picking the petals off and dropping them. But I remember just looking up, and I didn't know what to do, because I was a kid. I was like, do I go hug her? Do I leave her alone? And so I remember just sitting there watching her. And we had his funeral. they got that taken care of. And I remember going home, and everybody always brought over like goodies, and everybody cooked food. Everybody in the community would cook food and bring them by. Yeah. But I remember just sitting around like, why? Because nobody was eating anything.
Yeah.
But it took a while. It took a couple months, and I remember starting to ride again, starting to ride the horses, and starting to do things again. But I remember thinking that I would never be able to do that again.
Right in the middle of it. I mean, I imagine you just couldn't imagine continuing life. You know, I mean, something like that would just be so hard. I can only imagine. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you've dealt with that, but. Oh man, where to go from here?
That one's always hard for me. I feel like the older I get, the more emotional I get about it. Interesting enough.
It's hard. When after seeing your father for the first time and not knowing that it was your father, were you able to see him again or have any kind of connection with him afterwards, or was that the only time?
No, we never had pictures of him hanging up. We never had anything because that was considered against the rules.
Because he was sent away from the community, you weren't allowed to have any type of memory of him, right?
Yeah, I remember this one memory I have. I was 3 years old. I was sitting on his lap. It was pink carpet.
That? Wow.
I don't remember a lot of his face features, but thank you. But I do remember sitting on his lap and I'd hold his hands like this and I'd be like, bread mixer. And I'd pretend it stands for, and my little hands were the bread mixer machine.
Oh.
So I remember that very well. And he was talking to someone. I couldn't get his attention, but that's the only memory.
You have of him?
Yeah. But right after he left, we joined the other family and I didn't understand it. I remember just being really scared a lot of the times. I ended up like getting re-potty trained because of it.
Oh, gotcha.
And I ended up like having like bedwetting problems. I remember throwing up a lot. I don't remember why. I just remember being really sickly and throwing up a lot after he went.
Well, it's a lot of stress and a lot of change to go through so quickly.
Yeah.
So.
And it was like a big family. And like I didn't really, I didn't recognize Willard as a dad. And my stepdad for a long time I didn't. And we never got along. I was always a little bit scared of him. So, but yeah, and then the other family lived with us at that time when that happened, and they moved out, I think at the end of that year. They moved out and they moved into a different home. And it was kind of a situation where they were moving back to the creek because they had been a family that was kicked out and they didn't really have another place, so they moved in with us. It was kind of a situation like that.
Okay.
But I remember them moving out, and that was another whole hard thing. They'd lived with us for 2 years, and they were like family.
Yeah.
So it was like, goodbye, I'm so sorry, It was kind of like that.
How old were you when they moved out?
I was almost 11.
Almost 11, okay. And then were you 11 when the United Order stuff happened, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a lot of change in just a couple of years.
Yeah. To be like my brother, and then, turning 11, and then my stepdad was kicked out. My brother died in 2010. I turned 10 at the end of that year.
Yeah,
and then my stepdad was kicked out when I was 10.
And did they tell you what he was kicked out for?
No.
So once again, another person out, and you have no idea why.
When he was
from then on, you had to live without that person. The same like with your dad.
We took down the pictures. We didn't everything, and it was kind of interesting. I remember sitting there, and I just remember thinking, seriously again. But to me, I was in kind of a war inside my head because, like I said, I was a little bit scared of him. He did have some anger management issues. I won't go into much detail with that, but I was really scared of him. But the weird thing was, like a week before he was kicked out, he had a shop. He made what we call Denny blocks. They were like a wooden toy, and we sold them everywhere. We made catalogs for them. It's kind of like a business.
Interesting.
And all of us kids would get along. We'd glue the little pegs in, and it was fun. But I was really close to him at that time. Like I was out in the shop with him all day. I loved these blocks.
Interesting. You helped make them.
Yes.
Okay.
The whole family helped make them. But I was out in the shop with him pretty much all day. But I was kind of like, just kind of walking around behind a little bit and talk to him every once in a while. I didn't want to get in the way. I didn't want to be an inconvenience. But so I was getting a little bit close to him. And then they sent him to go.
So what happened with your mother, like with both of the mothers? Did you guys all still stay in the same house even after he was sent away, or did you get separated and was your mother remarried to somebody else? So
we stayed in the house all together as a family, and this was after Warren was in jail. So no, they did not remarry.
Oh, okay. Because no marriages could happen, right?
No marriages could happen.
Put an end to that too. He put an end to having more children. everything, right?
Yes, sex was banned. I think it was before, or it was after my dad went. So it was very unclear for us because Dad had gone. No one was having sex already. So I'm not sure when that exactly came, but I do know that was a cutoff. Like, I think it was no babies after 2013.
Right.
Okay.
Shoot.
So was that like a huge financial, like, did it stress out the mothers to all of a sudden have the father just be gone and they can't have a new provider? So what did your mothers do, like, to be able to provide for that many children all by themselves?
We did have food stamps.
Okay.
All the older brothers worked, so I had probably 5 older brothers that went out and worked on construction.
Okay,
And
so
they provided, yes.
Okay.
That was pretty common. Similar thing happened to a lot of families, I believe. The older brothers would kind of step in.
Yes. And another brother was actually, he was a part of the United Order because the United Order had just started then. But it was, we didn't know what was going on, so it was for very few people that were picked to be a part of the United Order, and he was a part of the United Order, and we didn't even know.
Oh, wow. So it's super secretive at first?
Yes.
Okay.
And he was placed over to be our caretaker.
Okay.
Gotcha.
But he wasn't the oldest son. I think he was the third.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
The most righteous.
Most righteous son.
And so, like, the oldest was kind of like, this is, like, what? He was a little bit, envious, and there was a lot of issues there.
Yeah, jealousy stuff going on.
I can imagine. I can see that. I mean, I think that happened a lot, though. Some of the older siblings were kind of told to either leave or step aside, and the younger one would probably someone that the leaders of the church weren't so threatened by.
Probably, yeah.
Were the ones that would step in and take over in that. But yeah, and then with the United Order, that's where the real craziness of starting to split up families really came, right?
Yes.
That's when, okay, now families split. These siblings are okay to go, these siblings aren't, and that just kind of started.
That's what I was going to
It was
ask.
just kind of randomly picked.
Yeah, so he was a part of the United Order before you guys all knew. How long was he in it before, like, it became a widespread thing where they were starting to separate people?
I have no idea.
I
Wouldn't tell you,
yeah.
right?
I remember he was a couple. So how it happened is we were having class, and my father got a call, my stepfather. He was like, I gotta go to the bishop's office. And it was interesting because my mom, for a couple days before, she did not really come out of her room. She acted like she knew something that nobody else knew.
Mm-hmm.
And she spent a lot of time in her room, and she cried a lot.
So something was going on.
Something, but nobody knew because she would have these episodes every once in a while where she would go into herself, and we'd have to, be there for her. But he went, and I remember him coming. He came back like a couple hours later. We'd finished class. He'd appointed one of the boys to finish class, and he came in and he was like, I need to talk to everyone. And we all gathered around, and he said, I lost my priesthood. I've been sent to God.
I lost my priesthood. Those were his words. Sheesh.
Wow.
I mean, that's just because out there, it's as a boy growing up and a young man and everything, priesthood, you're taught that's everything you should be living for, basically, is your priesthood. So to come in and say I lost my priesthood, that's basically saying I've lost everything.
Yeah, it was. He lost everything. He came in. It was like he was here. He was our father. He came in. He said that. He packed up and left that night.
Oh my word.
Everybody was crying. We felt a little bit lost after that. It was kind of Lyle had come over with one of the other elders. We were all sitting in the living room. It was
Lyle Jeffs was the bishop.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
It was Warren's brother, for those of you who.
Brother or?
Brother.
Brother, okay.
But they'd come over, and I remember we all sat in the living room and the light was off. Everybody was just in there, quiet. They knocked on the door. Someone turned on a little lamp in the corner, and they came in. And they sat down, and we just sat there quiet for probably 20 minutes. Not a word.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then it was, I don't know if you ever knew Vaughn Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
It was him. And they came in. I don't ever know what happened to him. He kind of disappeared. I never heard anything.
I wouldn't know.
But they came in, and he said, your other brother is directed to be your caretaker. You're now Storehouse, fully Storehouse dependent. So they would have the Storehouse. You could go up and you could purchase things from the Storehouse if you weren't fully Storehouse dependent. But when they sent your father away, you were fully Storehouse dependent.
Everything you got had to come from the Storehouse.
Yes. And there were certain things you couldn't have from the Storehouse unless you were Storehouse dependent, such as clothes, milk, a lot of things.
Describe to our viewers here, what is the Storehouse?
The Storehouse is a place where people donate clothing, food, necessities, anything.
But it's only for the church. It's church run. Only members of the church are able to donate to it, right? Okay.
And we would max out our food stamp cards and donate everything there. That was the food stamp fraud. That was why Lyle was
That's what Lyle got
because he directed everyone to do it. Yes.
Okay, so I never fully understood. I thought the fraud came from them claiming to be single mothers because they were only spiritual marriages. But
there was that too. There was that too.
But the part that got them caught was having them take all of their food stamps,
maxing them out,
and giving it all to the church
because they were directed to.
So then the church would distribute out as they wanted.
Yes.
Oh my word.
So it was like the government is giving you money to feed and take care of your big family, and you're taking all of that and giving it to a charity.
You're giving it to a charity.
Like that's government fraud. That's fraud.
Yeah, for sure. And then the church would give you back whatever they felt like you needed.
Yes. There were certain things we couldn't get easily, so they called it special requests. And you would write down on a paper what you needed. You'd get it signed from your caretaker, and then you would take it and you would drop it off in a box at the Storehouse. And this was, special things like shoes, because they weren't. You would be like, I need a pair of shoes, and then
so
it used to be months.
Shoes weren't a necessity then.
They were considered a necessity, but they weren't available.
Oh, okay.
So it was things
So you
that
couldn't
weren't
just
really
go to the store. You couldn't go into town and go buy a pair of shoes.
It was bad to go buy things in that period.
Hmm.
It was bad to go out.
Well, you weren't allowed to, right?
We weren't. We were told to give everything to the Storehouse.
Right.
We were told to give our money, any extra money. We paid, taxes, and then every once in a while they would stand up in church and they would say, we need $3,000 from every elder by the end of the weekend.
Wait.
I remember hearing about that, the tithing, right?
Yes. Wait, is that what you mean
so
by
there was tithing.
You said taxes.
No, she's saying they had to pay taxes first, and then all their extra money would go
taxes for the land.
Who would you pay the taxes to?
Them.
To the church.
Because it was all in a trust.
Oh my gosh, okay, I was misunderstanding that.
So you give taxes to the church, and then you give everything else that you bought to the church, and then you pay tithing?
Yes.
On top of all that?
Yes. And all your extra money goes to the church, because now you are fully Storehouse dependent.
Okay. And then, okay, if you're going to be doing this, then you're also probably going to have some kind of control over how many hours the people are working. Because if everything's coming to the church, then they're going to force them to, make sure they're working, right?
I don't know, but I would assume so.
If they have that much control, I'm sure they would require that the man would go to work and maybe even work extra hours and that type of thing. So, I don't know. We'll figure that out. We'll talk about that. We'll learn about that, I guess.
It's crazy.
But that kind of happened when my stepdad was kicked out. We became Storehouse reliant, or fully reliant on the Storehouse.
Okay.
Wow.
So that's how we got our food. That's how we got our other things. And then the older brothers would pay for power bill, water bill, and it was expensive out there. Those big houses, the power bill would be easy $1,500 a month. The water bill would be $500. So everybody would pitch in, and then my other mom ended up going to work. She was a CNA.
Mm.
Okay.
So she would go to work and she would tend she'd stay at people's older homes and she'd stay overnight.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Within the community, always, right?
No, she actually left town.
Oh, so she was okayed or given permission by the church to leave town and go be in other people's homes?
Yes.
Interesting.
Wow.
But she couldn't really talk about them a lot, what she did out there. It was kind of a hush-hush thing.
Mm.
But it was because we needed it. We needed
to make some money.
To make some money, yes.
To give to the church.
So how many children were living at the home, living in the home, when at that point it would be just your mother and 3 wives worth of children, correct? How many children were living in the home when that happened?
About 24 of us. And then the older boys, which was probably about 5 of them, were out working.
Wow. So 24 kids.
So wait, if there were 5 older boys out working, and they were giving all their money, that just wasn't that your mother still had to go work? That wasn't enough money, or? Interesting.
Yeah, we had a lot of things. One of my younger brothers, they were going hiking and he fell and broke his femur.
Mm.
And the hospital bill was really expensive. They life flighted him, and that actually was why she went and got a job. Was because
so you give everything to the church, then you have an accident and you have a hospital bill. The church isn't going to help with that.
They don't. They do not.
Holy cow!
So it's kind of like fend for yourself, give everything to us, figure it out a little bit.
But wow.
And yeah, things definitely, as I've said before, things started to get a lot of it crazy just shortly after I moved out. I moved out in 2008.
Yeah,
So,
all this would have been 2010,
just shortly.
beginning 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
The order started 2012.
2012. So at that point, when the order was started and they started separating like the families into those who are a part of the order and those who are not, that was happening right after they had kicked out your stepfather, correct?
Yes, it was about 6 months.
6
to
months
a year
after.
later.
Okay, so now these two mothers have 24 children in the home. The 5 brothers are taken care of, and the United Order comes in. How many of your family, again, for those of you who have not heard more about the United Order, definitely go back and watch that video, because we won't go into a ton of detail here, but just kind of summarize how many were considered worthy of being in the United Order and how many were...
I've got to count this in my head.
Yeah, go for it.
Good luck.
On the spot question.
Yes, I've been there.
I think there was around about 13 to 14 of us that were in.
So it was almost split in half then.
Yes. And a lot of the younger children, like the ones that were under the age of 8, stayed with their mom.
Okay.
But anybody over the age of 8 was considered a part or not a part of the order.
Of the order.
Yes.
And then were you moved into separate homes, or were you...
Yes, when the separations happened, I moved over with my cousins. And some of their family was non-members as well, so they moved out. And we moved into their basement. So it was my mom's sister and their part of the family that was members.
So at that point, were you with either of your mothers?
My mother was in the order.
Oh, okay.
My
Your
birth mom.
mother.
And the first mom, which was crazy because she was always considered, really, she was a good woman. She was a stand-up righteous woman. And she was the one that was not a part of the United Order.
Wow.
So,
She failed the handshake.
I guess she failed that interview. And it's my oldest sister and my youngest brother stayed with the other mom. My youngest brother was 9 at the time.
And he wasn't worthy to be part of the United Order?
He was not. I remember him turning 10. It was about a year we were separated. And then all the, order members became non-members, except for the 4 Storehouse. And we all kind of moved back together.
Okay.
So it was about a year we were separated. It was 11 months to be exact.
Was it hard to ever feel like there was actually a place that was considered home?
Well, there never was. They would up and move you whenever they wanted. They would move families in different homes all the time to fit more people in, or they'd move you in a smaller home to fit a bigger family that moved from Texas or something else in. And so it was never like we moved 1 year. We lived in the same home clear up until I was 11, 12.
Yeah.
Then we got separated, moved into different homes, and then we moved into a home for 2 months, moved out of that one, we moved into a home for 5 months, we moved out of that one. So we just moved when we were told to. Your caretaker, my stepfather's brother ended up being our caretaker because the other brother was kind of like, I don't want to be a member. I don't want this responsibility. It was a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
So your caretaker would show up and be like, okay, the moving crew's going to show up in a couple hours. You guys are moving. And that's how it was. It wasn't, you're moving in a couple days. It was usually the moving crew showing up tonight. You're moving, start packing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No.
As a kid to go through that and so many moves, no stability at all. That's and the families you said it was about half and half. So the siblings, you said you were apart from them for about a year.
Yes.
And then everyone became non-members again, and you got to go back to them and see them and.
Yes.
Okay.
But only my mother's children moved over with my cousins, and the other mother's children that were part of the United Order moved over into my father's brother's home.
Okay.
So they lived with him and his family, so we didn't even live with all of our siblings that were part of the United Order. A lot of the other ones from the other mom were separated, yes.
Now the FLE is like, tell me if I'm wrong, but they still were considered, no, yeah, it is heavy, it's a lot.
A lot of information.
It's a lot of good information that we're grateful you're willing to share. But, I mean, they emphasize the family a lot, right? The importance of family, like, same with the mainstream LDS. And so I'm just thinking, was that so hard, like, as a kid, where they tell you that family is everything, and yet basically the church kept taking away any stability of family that you had? Like, was that something that crossed your mind of, like, this doesn't add up, that they say this and then this is what's happening to me? Or was it one of those that you were so deep into the situation that you didn't have a chance to?
I think for us, we were so deep in the situation, like, obviously some of us were sad and we were angry, but for all of us, like, that kind of became normal.
Gotcha.
That was normal for somebody else to decide that for you. So for us, we were being directable. We were going to heaven.
Yeah.
That was how it happened. We
all
cried.
that
I
matters.
remember when the family split up. We cried. We hugged each other. We said goodbye. We couldn't communicate with non-members. My mom, however, could go over and see her other children.
Okay.
It was like a couple times a week. So she did, but it was like an hour out of the day, and then she would come back. But she was able to do that. But for us, like, it was, but at that point, I don't think anybody really even knew how to question. And the people that did left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you weren't allowed to question the
You were never
leadership.
allowed to question the prophet ever.
Right.
If you even questioned him. I remember at a young age being like, why would this happen? You know, just a curious mind, and be like, don't you question the prophet.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a beating for that. You can get kicked out for that.
Mm.
So.
Just so interesting that it turned out the way it did, because growing up out there, we were always told to be afraid of the government coming and trying to split up the community, split up the families. And then to see that the church itself is actually what ended up splitting everyone up.
If you fear something, it's because you have it in your own heart. So if the leaders are saying the government's coming to do that, it's because they have that in their heart.
That's
Crazy. So how old were you when you started thinking, you know what, as soon as I'm able, I'm out of here. I don't want this for my life.
So for me, I was about 6 years old when my mom had had a mental breakdown.
That is
6 to
very
7.
young.
I didn't want that life, but then when all this happens and you're that young, you forget.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of go with it. You kind of lose that fight a little bit, and you go with it.
Yeah, you don't have any power to be able to fight back at 6 or 7.
Yeah, and so I always want to get up. It was like a pipe dream. I always wanted to be like a famous singer or something. Because I started playing guitar at 8, and we had a lot of music, and I was like, I'm a good singer. I'm gonna, be a famous singer, and I might do it still. Who knows?
Right.
You should.
Give it a shot. Why not?
But so for me, I wanted to, but it was a pipe dream. It was never really a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 13, our family had all moved back in the same house. But there was kind of a lot of resentment because we'd been apart. It's a small town. There's rumors.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, you did this. I can't believe you did that. My sister would never do that. So there was a lot of division between the two families. But we ended up kind of rebuilding, kind of getting back together, I feel like. And we, got back to schedules. And at that point, there was the 4 older siblings. And because there was 8 younger than me. So there was 4 older and 4 younger. And we just kind of divvied out the days. We'd take all the children. So from about 13 to 16, we stayed with the family and we did that. I remember putting all the children to bed, the 4 younger. They were all really young.
Yeah.
And I'd climb out on the roof after I'd put them all to bed, and I would just sit there and stare at the stars.
Wow.
Like that
That's
was my
so
sanity.
much responsibility for a 13-year-old to have 4 children to take care of. Like, I'm a mother, and I still the idea of 4 children. We have 2, and I'm like,
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
So,
I would be overwhelmed taking care of 4 children in a day, let alone a 13-year-old.
I remember, feeling like that. Like, I would rebel every once in a while, like, Mom, you're never having grandkids because I am tired of kids. Like, that was a phrase we used a lot. But I remember those moments where I loved, like, we didn't have movies. We didn't have much stimulation as far as that. So our kind of stimulation, our happiness was nature. It was hiking. It was the sunset. The sunset was my favorite thing in the world. Like, there was nothing that overwhelmed me with joy, just the sunset and the stars. And that was peace. I felt so much overwhelming peace when I would watch those kind of things.
Nature was really
that was life.
all we could watch. We weren't allowed to watch anything else.
So that was enjoyment. That was life. And still, I treasure that. And it's a huge part of me still. And I feel like a lot of people don't experience that. And that's something that I am grateful for.
Yeah, I agree.
I did have those experiences with nature because of the way I was raised.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously you adapted well. You were put into a situation that you either swim or sink, right?
Yeah.
And
for me, it's like just keep going, just do it.
During.
And we did it. Then we all moved back, like I said. And do you remember the evictions? Did you guys ever hear about?
Oh yes.
The evictions out there.
So we did hear about the evictions.
We did. Tell us about it though.
I was like, I want to hear from the
because
insider.
you were in the middle of it, right?
Yes.
You were.
Many times.
Okay, because we heard about it from out here, sitting on our comfy couches, but we we didn't really experience. We went out there to try to see what was going on.
There were still tents up of where they were having people temporarily housed.
But it wasn't. I mean, you couldn't just go and talk to someone and say, "How can I help?" Like no one would talk. to us.
Yeah, it was like we're very hush hush. The government was coming after us.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was happening, like they said.
Yeah.
You know, all of us were really scared. We weren't worthy. This was happening because we were not worthy. We were not building Zion.
Right.
And so for us, like I was 13 when the eviction started. We moved into it was up there right by the house that you grew up in, neighbors to it.
Yeah.
All of our family lived there. And what would happen is they weren't paying the taxes on the trust.
Yep.
So after they would ask elders for money and they told everybody that they were paying the taxes,
Oh no.
it was not happening.
Oh no. I heard a rumor that they were telling everyone not to pay the taxes. Like the church was saying, do not pay the taxes.
So after they did, because the eviction started happening.
Oh, then they said, go ahead and pay them?
They said don't.
Oh, they said don't. Oh.
So
the
they weren't
eviction
paying
started
them.
happening because the church, the LDS church that owns all the land and all the homes out there, because everyone had given them the land and the homes.
Right.
Well, they owned it to begin with. It was all in a trust.
Well, it's
Yeah,
all in
it's
the
all in a
UEP,
trust.
in the UEP trust.
Yes.
Which the church owned before Warren, in a sense, signed it away to the government so that he could keep more of the money. I believe is the reason why.
I don't think it was signed over. It was changed the kind of trust. This
was
is all hazies, but we just watched a documentary on this, which we actually learned a lot of.
Yeah,
so
about the
to give a quick little summary of what we learned just recently was that the kind of trust it was before had to get like board approval and stuff, and
Yes.
Warren changed it to a charitable trust, I think.
so that he could have all the power.
Well,
one
Roland
man
was
could
on
have
it. Roland was on it. When he passed away, Warren kind of changed things. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how,
Right.
but that's kind of what
It gave more power, but the kind of twist to it was the fact that if that one person didn't take care of the trust, then the Utah Attorney General, or District Attorney, I can't
One of
remember,
them.
but somebody in the Utah state government was allowed to step in. And so when Warren wasn't taking care of things within the trust, that is when the government got involved and said, you're not, these taxes
So
aren't
they
being
took all the
paid. They
trust.
took over.
Yeah.
But for the people that were living out there,
that had built the homes
That had-
themselves.
they built the homes, and there's no reason for you guys to believe that the government wasn't just coming after you, because you guys have been told that you were paying your taxes, right?
Yes.
So from their perspective, like, they're paying their taxes. The church is saying we're paying the taxes with this money. The land belongs to us. We consecrated this to the church. It's all the churches, and in
It
their
belongs to God as well. of
yeah,
course.
and it belongs to God, right? And so, therefore, how on earth could the government come and try to take this from us? And so, when the government was saying, you haven't paid the taxes, you need to pay taxes on this, the people were saying, like, no.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the church told you that
They
they
didn't.
were paying the taxes.
They did, and then they told us not to when those started.
Oh, goodness.
So how happened is you got paper on the door. You have 30 days to either pay up all taxes, because all liens on taxes are the number one priority in land everywhere,
Yeah.
or you get kicked out. And we were told to stay with the home until our last day we had, basically. So we'd get the 10-day notice, we would stay with the home, and then we'd get, like, basically the last day, the moving crew would show up. That was everybody in town, everybody from, like, the age of, like, 12 and older. I started working on the moving crew when I was 12. And you'd go in, you would box up everybody's houses, you'd box their stuff up, you'd move them into a new home, set up their beds, make their beds, and go.
Wow.
So, how old were you when the eviction started?
13.
13. Okay.
So
And
they
you just
went
get moved to another
to
house?
another home
Yes.
within the community, because that home had a little bit more time before they was going to be
Yes.
evicted or something.
Because I don't know how they picked, but it was certain homes get evicted. And we moved into, all of us moved into a 6-bedroom home. So it was very cramped. We lived on bunk beds. We had 2 bunk beds in the little tiny small room.
Wow.
So we moved into there. We held onto that home until the evictions, and then we moved everything out of it. Like the ice maker. It was a huge, huge ice maker in the basement. They moved it out.
Sheesh.
So we didn't leave anything for the government except for the physical home that was attached.
Was there any kind of animosity towards, like, okay, this is happening, so we don't care about trashing the house? Like, when you were moving out, was there ever like I don't care if I scratch a wall or ruin something because they're taking it away from us?
So there were some families that were like that. Ours was not. We were told not to be because we were told that we would get the land back.
Get it back, okay.
So we were told to respect it and take
I
care of
ask only because I've seen some of the homes that look like they were trashed.
it. So, yeah, some of them were, and a lot of them were just abandoned. No one was living there after that.
Mm-hmm.
So they moved us into that smaller home, and then we ended up getting evicted out of there.
So where did you end up as a family?
They split our family up when that happened.
Oh, goodness.
Again.
Another split up.
Yes, they were like, your family is not working in the family dynamic. You guys are not living up to the laws. You're not having your classes on time. And at this point, we had a caretaker that wasn't really related to the family because the other one got sent to go. And they would change him quite frequently, just whenever they decided. And he kind of got overwhelmed. It's like, this family's not living up to the laws. They're not having classes. Our family was very chaotic at that time.
I can only imagine with everything that they put you through. How could you not be? How could you have any kind of sense of like order or peace in a home with everything that they had put you through? Like,
Yeah. The other mom was working. The little brother that was handicapped, he was really sickly for a long time because he was allergic to any milk products, and they started putting milk in the formula we were feeding him, and we didn't know.
Right.
So he ended up losing so much weight. He got down to 17 pounds as a 5-year-old.
Whoa.
oh my gosh.
And we thought he was going to die, and we figured out what was wrong, and us girls took care of him because the mom was working. But I remember just sitting there all night, just feeding him, and with the stomach tube, we'd blend up real food and feed it to him with a syringe, those big syringes.
Oh, wow.
But like I loved him like he was my kid because I felt like it.
You were taking care of him.
Yeah.
So like when they split the family up, they took the other mom and her kids and they moved him in with someone else, and then they moved my mom and some of the older girls from the other mom in with the Jessup family that we didn't even know.
No.
So now you're living with another family.
Completely new family, all strangers to you.
But they weren't. But your mother wasn't married to the new family.
No, and so the mom wasn't either because her husband had left. So it was a mom and her kids. Most of her other family had left. She'd moved in. My mom moved in with a lot of the family, and we had the other mom, the Jessup mom. She was married to a Jessup, but she was originally a Barlow, so her brother was our caretaker.
Oh wow.
So we didn't know him at
So
all.
the caretaker was constantly like the person that was watching over and taking care of you, I guess you could say.
He would show up
always
about
changing.
once or twice a month, and he would, give us direction and sign all of our special requests to the storehouse for us. And
So what was a special request you sent in? Did you ever send in a special request?
So I requested an iPod once. I
Okay.
was denied because I was under
I can
18.
imagine that was denied.
I requested shoes a couple times. Sometimes it was hangers. We would also go help with special requests. We'd go to the storehouse. This was another storehouse project. We'd go there and we'd fill out special requests.
Yeah.
So they had like a big warehouse of stuff, and you'd go fill out special requests. It was like, I need 5 hangers. We'd put those together, take the special request to it, and give it to the storehouse.
5 hangers?
If that's what they requested, yeah. A lot of times.
Did you ever just like see something there you wanted and quickly fill out a request and take it?
I was tempted. I wanted to.
I was like, you would have done that.
I would have tried at least.
But yeah, at that point I was 15.
Oh man.
Okay.
And there was a lot of division in the family, like, obviously. And I kind of gravitated towards the other family we lived with, and it made the rest of my family angry. Like, they were like, you're stupid, you're this. And so I ended up moving in a room with the other girl. And then when our families kind of moved back, I was like, I'm not doing this. And I moved back over with my cousins.
Okay. So you, in a sense, just rebelled against what the church was telling you to do. And you're like, all right.
No, I had to ask my caretaker for permission.
Oh, okay. So you.
But
okay.
I was tired of my family.
Oh man.
And I told my mom, I was like, I love you, but it wasn't working with the other mom's kids. There was a lot of division, a lot of stuff, and I wasn't really accepted.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm moving in with my cousins. I talked to my Aunt Shannon about it. I love her more than anything. She was a mom to me more than anybody.
Wow.
But so I talked to her, and I was like, I'm going to move over there. I called my caretaker. I was like, hey, I'm moving. I kind of told him. And he was like, you are? I was like, yes. And he knew the situation. He kind of knew what was going on, so he okayed it, and I ended up moving over there. And I told my mom, I was like, when you have your own house and it's just us siblings, I will move back with you.
Okay. And did that ever happen?
Yes.
Oh, good.
They got evicted again.
Oh goodness!
You'd already taken care of that yourself. You had already moved, so when they got evicted, you didn't have to move again. Jeez.
Yeah, they got evicted, and my mom moved to Cedar in a rental house. And the other mom moved with some of her sisters, so his cousins, in a house they'd bought in the Bergen.
Okay.
Okay.
So at this point, you're
So
already.
they moved out of the community at that
Yes.
point.
And
And
I
you
was
were-
still there with
Okay.
another family.
So So you were told to move out of the community, right? Like there came a point. I heard a rumor anyway. There came a point where Warren Jeff said, "All right, everyone that is still members of the church need to move away from Colorado City, Utah." Okay.
Yeah, everybody. And there are some people that are still there. It was kind of family by family.
Oh.
So it was different directed. But the family that I was living with, they were there for a long time after. But I was like, okay. I called my mom. I was like, how are things going? She's like, they're good. I want you to come move with us. And I was like, well, I kind of like being in the creek. It's my own town. It's a part of me. And the mountains, I love the mountains. I would draw the mountains. I grew up drawing.
Oh, wow.
So I was really attached to the mountains and the scenery there.
It's beautiful.
It is. It really is. Mm-hmm. So I was like, no, I don't want to move out of the creek. And I'd got a boyfriend by then.
The real reason behind it.
Yes. I had been sneaking around with someone. I was 16. He was 17.
Okay.
So I was like, I want to move because of that. And we'd gone out for about 6 months. And when I finally moved up to Cedar. But we would sneak out all night. And this was the funnest. I miss sneaking out, even still. It was so exhilarating.
The adrenaline of not getting caught.
Of sneaking back in and being like, I made it. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. No one's awake. Sneaking back in the window. But we would haul off. We would drive to Hurricane all night. We'd just go down there. We'd go down there and park. And he had some movies.
Okay.
So we would sneak movies and pull out his
see
little
some of that
tablet
Gentile entertainment.
Yes.
That's so
But then I also snuck some movies myself. The first one I watched was Seven Brides. Oh no, wait, it's Frozen.
Oh, really?
Nice.
I was 16 when I watched that one, and I felt so guilty. I was like, I felt so bad. And
such a bad movie, right?
Yeah. And then it was Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. And I only had those two, so I had rewatched them.
Yeah, you were like, this is right in my alley. I can watch this one.
I remember one time we were having class, and we were listening to devotionals because Warren had recorded devotionals and stuff. We'd listen to them every Sunday. You know, he was recording. He was talking about the Romans and how they'd gone and stole those women, and how they were very adulterous. They'd stolen naked and they were swimming. Anyway, I came in singing, "Tell you about those Romans," you know. And so I came in singing that song out of there, and my mom was like, "Joanna." But it was like perfect timing because he was talking about that, and I came in singing that.
That's way too funny.
That's hilarious.
And it was like, "Oh, you have movies. That's bad." And so he took the little thumb drive and broke it in front of my face.
Oh no!
So I didn't have those.
I was very bad at sneaking around and with girls. I got caught several times for whatever reason. Coming home at like 3 o'clock in the morning, my mother's sitting at the front door. I'm like, how did you know? But
I was inspired.
But I was very, come to find out, apparently the girl that I was out with, her mom noticed she wasn't in her bed. So and assumed for some reason that she may be with me, so she called my mom.
Oh!
I don't know how. Anyway, so it was her fault. No. But I was very good at sneaking music and DVDs and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I even had like a small DVD portable player that I would hide under my bed and that. So anyway, I got pretty clever with that type of thing. But
I think we all did a little bit.
Yeah. Did you actually have a portable DVD player as well?
So I had a CD player.
Okay.
And I'd like sneak a lot. This was bad. I used to shoplift CDs that had like albums on them.
Oh, so then you couldn't get caught buying them?
Yeah, because I couldn't anyway. I didn't have money.
You didn't have any money.
So I would shoplift them and then I would sneak them.
Okay.
But I only had like one or two. I only did it like once or twice. It was too risky. I didn't want to get caught.
Right.
And then I had that, and I would hide it between my mattress and my box spring.
Okay.
But then that got found as well, and a history
really?
book that I'd had because they didn't really teach about a lot of history except for what they decided was good. And so I was reading about history. I was so intrigued by history my whole life, and I was reading it, and it got taken away.
Oh.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to listen or have any books. There came a point where any book that wasn't written by the prophets or scripture was bad.
Yeah.
So.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was tough because when I was a young boy growing up, this was long before you were ever around, we had a library out there and we were able to go out and check out books. And so I remember reading Amelia Bedelia and Clifford and, these children's books that I really enjoyed reading. I love to read.
Yeah.
So when that was taken away, that was really difficult for me. But
Yeah, I remember my mom telling me, she actually was the one that told me about Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, because when she was a teenager, they allowed some of that.
Gotcha.
So I was always going to find that movie. That and My Fair Lady.
I
Even
love
still,
that movie. I love My Fair
same.
Lady.
It's one of my favorites.
It's a good one.
It's a classic.
Even still, I gravitated to classics. I love the classics because of that. Like,
Did you ever watch the Sound of Music?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That was one
of
that
my favorites.
we were allowed to watch as a family on occasion if father was present. You know,
Oh.
it wasn't something that we could watch on our own, but there were a couple movies. Bambi was one of them.
I remember hearing about Bambi
Yeah.
from my older siblings, but we never watched it.
Have you ever seen it?
No.
You haven't, out of curiosity?
Well, we know what family movie night this week's gonna be.
Yeah, let's watch Bambi for sure.
I saw Bambi a lot of times. Thumper was my good old friend. So, but yeah.
Awesome.
So no, we had some good times. Things got a lot crazier as time went on.
They did.
Growing
They got
up, man,
worse,
it
right?
was a very tight, really good community. I would say, you know, when I was a young boy.
And even when I was young, like, we had fun. We did things, but the things we considered fun, I don't know if other people would. We went hiking. That was like the highlight. We had a picnic. We rode horses. We got to go out and feed the horses. I loved that. I genuinely loved feeding the horses. Like, we did things like that. We used to go, like, you know, snowboarding. One time we went ice skating on the creek when it was frozen over.
Wow.
One of the children bashed their head.
That was risky. Did it freeze over? I guess you're right. The reservoir up there would freeze over sometimes too, but I never dared. I was afraid of water.
But it was the creek, you know. The water was shallow.
Right, that's true.
It was the running water. But one of the children fell and, like, split their head.
Oh no.
And so it was like, that was bad.
Yeah.
That was something we shouldn't have done. All of a sudden, that was a bad thing.
Gotcha.
So it was kind of interesting. And then, like, any recreational thing, we ended up not doing. All the trampolines, all that was considered bad. Anything that wasn't working was considered bad and banned, kind of.
Anything new? Have you seen the movie The Croods?
I've not.
You gotta watch it.
If you say have you seen, I'll just save you time and say no.
Anything new is bad.
Yes.
So that's how it was out there. That's actually a good point. That's a good relation. That's kind of how it was out there.
Anything
Watch The
new is
Croods.
bad.
If you haven't seen The Croods, that's kind of how it was. Anything new was bad. So, but yes, that's definitely the way it was for us too. But we found ways to have a good time. There were a lot of siblings, and we would always find ways to have a good time.
Oh yeah, we always did. Like
Yeah.
I said, my life wasn't bad. It was my life. Why would I consider it bad? You know. But when I was 16, I had called my mom. This was when I was living with my cousins, and I talked to my boyfriend. Obviously, I was like, I might move to Cedar, and he's like, oh, it's fine. I'll just drive up there. It's only an hour drive. I was like, cool. So, and my mom was easier to sneak around anyway, and we would kind of almost got caught a lot of times, and I denied for days. I denied, and it was like, you know, quit it. You're gonna have to move to Cedar with your mom, and then you're separated.
Right.
So I was like, okay, fine. I'll just move up there and do it. So I called her, and I was like, how's it been going? How's the girls? And I was 16 at the time. And she's like, it's good. I was like, cool. Can I move up? She's like, talk to your caretaker, and let's figure it out.
Wow.
So I moved up to Cedar, and my boyfriend would drive up almost every night after work, because he worked for a company in there as well. Like I said, all the boys started working very young. So he was working, and he had a car in his sister's name, and he would drive up a lot, and we would sneak out.
I was gonna say, do you remember? I was gonna say this. This is where we come into Joanna's story.
This is
the first time we met.
The first
Joanna.
time I met, yes. Even though we're related, it was still the first time we met.
Yeah. So funny enough, one of Sam's, oh goodness, I'm not even gonna try to mess with it, but Joanna's boyfriend was a family member through a sister-in-law. Anyway, and remember, like, the first time you guys came and we all watched a movie. And was it your mother or was it his mother?
Someone was calling.
It was his mother calling.
A lot.
And yeah, calling over and over. And I was like, you guys, you can't, like, be out here. We don't want them to think that we're like these awful people. But it was so cute because, like, you're still in your prairie dresses. And she was still dressed, and they were sneaking so that they could be like this on the couch. And watch, you know, like, PG or PG-13 movies. I don't think we even had, like, we did our movies or anything. Like, got to watch cartoons, and so we had these little, you know, these secret little lovebirds come down to our house and watch movies with us and have dinner sometimes, I think. I can't remember if you came for dinner or just
We
for
did a
visits, but-
couple times.
Yeah, come down and visit. And so that was when I first got to know Joanna.
So when we first met you, how old were you?
17.
17. Okay, so you were almost 8.
So I turned 17 in Cedar City. Wait, no, I was 16.
No, I think you were 16
I
still.
was, yes.
Because you
it was
left when
right
you were
after,
17, right?
Yeah, it was right after I got my job. So my sisters were working at a hotel there in Cedar because we were supporting mom now. We didn't have food stamps. And our stepdad was kind of coming back around. He was helping us. He helped us get into the house. And then we would pay him the money for rent.
Oh, nice.
So we all worked, all 4 of my older sisters. And when I moved out there, I was like, Mom, I'm getting a job. And the reason is because we'd met up with one of my boyfriend's friends. He was like, hey, in September, we're going to California and you guys should come.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I said was, awesome, I'm getting a job so we can do that. So I went out and got me a job with the place my sisters worked. I brought the papers home. I was like, Mom, I got a job time. She was like, did you ask Uncle Vance? Because he was our caretaker. I was like,
yeah,
it's fine. So she signed, and then Uncle Vance was like, I want you to get rid of that job.
Oh, no.
That's kind of like, haha, make me.
Oh,
So it was like
The
that.
rebelliousness, because you already had the boyfriend.
He got me a phone already, so I was sneaking around with the phone. You were not supposed to have a phone at 18, and even then, at night, you have to give your keys and your phone to your parents.
Oh,
or
really?
to your mom. Yes. At night.
Interesting. They don't want you sneaking out at night, right?
Yep. But yeah, we'd snuck out. He would drive up a lot. I would go to work, and he'd come up. We'd spend all the evening together, and then he would race home. I remember even going over 100 all the time to get home before his dad woke up.
I remember his car. He loved that car.
So,
Yeah, that was my first car.
so when did he sleep?
I don't know.
Sounds like a him
I guess-
problem.
I guess,
Yeah,
you
it was a him problem.
If you're in love, you don't need to sleep, I guess. huh?
Yeah, we were so in love. It was funny. He ended up coming up on the weekends because I didn't work on the weekends, and we would sleep in his car
Oh, man.
all weekend. And we would
Just
wake
to be
up
together.
just to be together.
Mm.
Half the time we didn't shower, we'd wake up, we'd watch movies, we'd go hiking. I have so many pictures of us hiking
Oh,
out there in Cedar and stuff. But yeah, and then when I was 17, we were talking about leaving for a while. So right after I turned 17, I tried to leave. And I didn't end up leaving till the middle of that year. So
Okay.
I turned 17 in December.
So when you
Yeah,
say you
that's
tried
next
to leave, what is that?
What
What
does
is
that
that?
look like?
What does that look like?
So for me, I told my mom I wanted to go.
Okay.
I already kind of started dressing how I wanted and doing the things I wanted, and I'd gotten in trouble plenty of times.
Mm.
My other mom called me up one day and was like, "You're pregnant." And I was like, Like I wasn't even having sex at all. Like we snuck around for months.
Right.
That poor guy stuck around for months before I ever even gave him a chance.
Yeah. So why would she say that?
She wanted me to fess up that I had a boyfriend.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I was like, isn't there things that have to happen for you to be pregnant? She's
Yeah.
like, don't you be sassy with me. I know the truth. Anyway, so I was just kind of like, whatever. Just kind of laughed at her and hung up the phone. Then she came up a couple months later to see us, and she was like, I was always, really thin, and I would wear my dresses. I'd do my belts really tight because I liked looking thin. She was like, you're too skinny. You're not eating enough. I was like, so I'm not pregnant. So it was kind of a rebellious thing. But in about probably February, I told my mom that I wanted to move out.
Okay.
And she was like, you're not doing it. You're under 18. You do it, I get cops involved. I get law involved.
Mm.
So we fought about it for months, clear until about June. It was just, I was always like, I'd get home from work. I'm like, Mom, I'm moving out. I was like, first thing I'd say when I walk in the room, I'm moving out. She'd be like, no, you're not, you little rat, you little snot. And we would fight and yell and scream. And then finally, when I finally got the opportunity, I started talking to a cousin of mine. She was also the cousin that I lived with, part of their family. She'd left.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, you guys can come move up with me.
Oh.
So I was talking to her, and I told my mom I had somewhere to go. And she finally was like, yeah, I want you to be happy if that's what you want.
Oh, wow. Good for
Just
her.
didn't want to fight anymore.
Yeah,
Good for you,
I'd
Mom.
kind of worn her down.
Yeah.
So I had packed up everything. I said goodbye to everybody. We all cried. But my older sister was the only one that was out at the time. So Rosie and then me.
Okay.
Out of my mom's kids, there was a couple of the other mom's kids that had left.
But at least you had Rosie to.
But she lived somewhere else, so she wasn't really there. I moved all the way up to Salt Lake.
Oh, wow.
So we packed up. We moved in with my cousin.
What would you say
Yeah.
was the biggest? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, what was the biggest shock when leaving? Because obviously at that point, like, you may have snuck some movies or seen some music, but that's a whole different world to actually like be starting to live in the regular world. What was the biggest shock?
So I'd already got a job, so I kind of knew how to manage money a little bit, but I didn't really have a car. I didn't really have any bills of my own. So when I moved and I took over my boyfriend's car. He got another one. He got another Cadillac. So we both had Cadillacs at the time. And I didn't know how to make my car payment. And he was like, you just call the bank. You just talk to him. Just tell him what you want to do. And so for me, I'd gotten my bank account and stuff before I'd left. So I'd had my mom sign on it. And so I did. I remember just being so insecure and like not knowing how to pay bills and insurance and stuff like that, and car insurance. And so I'd left, and it was very intimidating. And I was also getting into high school right after I left. I was 17. I was gonna experience.
Well, good for you to try to, jump into it, and that's.
I was so terrified. My cousin was like, "Yeah, you're going to school. You're going to school. Let's do this." And she was pushing it, and I wanted to, but I was terrified.
Yeah, that's scary.
But I did it. I got into high school that August because I'd left in June, middle of June, and then I got in that August.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And we were still living with her at the time, and I went to high school and I got me a job. But like I couldn't work enough to cover bills and do school.
Oh, okay. So did you have to drop out of high school?
So I ended up, I would stay up late and drink energy drinks and try to get my schoolwork done, and I ended up in the hospital with a kidney infection.
Oof.
Oh no.
Overdid it. Yeesh.
So it was kind of like you're stressed. You have too much caffeine intake. So your kidney is scarred. When I was a kid, I had bad kidneys all the time. I always had infections, and they never took me to the doctor. So I have a scarred kidney.
Oh, man.
And they're like, you can't. Like, you need to pick school or work. I was like, well, bills don't go away.
Yeah.
So I chose work, and I worked at a restaurant for a long time. And then we ended up moving to Heber City, and he went to the military for a while.
Gotcha.
And this whole time I got a job at a hotel. I was just kind of surviving. We lived with his sister, the one that's your sister.
The one that interests, yeah.
Yes.
Our friend's sister is our sister-in-law.
I love her so much.
Married Sam's brother, biological brother.
Yeah,
so we lived with her for like a year and a half. I worked at a hotel. I tried a lot of things. I did some modeling for some small companies, and I loved it. I loved it so much. I performed with my older sister, Rosie. She got to singing and stuff, and I performed with her a couple times, and I loved doing it. And then we moved back to Bluffdale. We got our own place finally, and I started managing a restaurant then. So we had more income and stuff like that. And then we kind of broke up. So that kind of happened. I was 20, just turned 20. So it was a couple months, and it wasn't working out. There was a lot of pressure on both ends, and so we called it quits. We'd actually got engaged because he went to the military. He'd come back 2 months later because of asthma. And we got engaged, and then we called it off. So he moved out, and I lived there in Bluffdale. My sister, Gloria, moved up. One of my other sisters, she left and moved up.
Oh.
And so we lived there for a long time, and I decided to get my real estate license.
And that kind of leads it up to where it's at today.
Yeah, I got a job singing at a bar for a while. It was a lot of fun. So I worked the 2 jobs. I did school. I still don't know how I did it. It took me 2 months, but I was very cranky the whole time. Just ask anybody that knew me.
Very tired.
Yeah, but I did. I went and passed the test, and I'm now a licensed agent. Still waiting for that license number, but it's coming.
It's coming
very
soon.
Impatient. But I think like overall, I love, like, I'm blessed. I am.
Yeah. Well, you've done a heck of a job. Ever since moving out, like, you've just been very ambitious and put your mind to what you wanted to do and made it happen. So congratulations on that. I know it's difficult for a lot, especially the women that move out. It's so difficult to know what to do and to be motivated to do it.
Well, it was, and there was a lot of setbacks. Like, I actually auditioned for American Idol once. And they were like, okay, you can sing, your stage fright, go deal with that, then come back. They're like, we love your story, you'd be perfect. And so I tried a lot of different things, but when it came down to it, I think, like, I wanted to sell houses. And so I worked for it, and I remember just pushing through, and I always felt like I wasn't, really educated and stuff because of the homeschool and the inconsistency, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. Who cares?
Yeah, and you did.
Yeah.
And now she's down by us.
Yeah.
And now I'm down here in Vegas, and I've met a lot of amazing people. I've had a lot of amazing opportunities, I'm just grateful. What can I say?
Yeah.
Good. And so, are you to this? Well, I guess I don't know if you even can answer this. Do you have a lot of family that you're able to keep in touch with?
Yes, most of my mom's siblings left, but my mom is still in with the 3 youngest.
Okay.
We talk sometimes.
Well, good.
And I cherish it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I can imagine it's not easy. I have a lot of members that are still in the church
Yeah,
and
you have a lot
following
you
Warren
can
Jeff,
talk to. So.
and I'm not allowed to talk to them, right? So sometimes I'm tempted to just drive out there and say, accept me, you know.
I'm here. I have kids. What's up with that?
But
No, I know the feeling.
Because I came from that place and I know how I would be, I guess, received. I just don't want to cause problems, but I wish I could do that.
Yeah. But this story, I tell my story, but there's so much like we don't remember. There's so much we forget.
That's true.
And so I tell it the best of my knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well, and it's fun because it's hard to do this in front of a camera, but it's fun to sit down with Joanna and just chat about our experiences, because when you're talking with someone that's been through this similar situation, all of a sudden these memories come up of different things and all that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So maybe there'll be future videos as well with more details, but
Yeah, I think there will be, but
Yeah.
heck of
thanks for doing it with us.
heck of an experience. Thanks for being here. Seriously, you're a good example to a lot of people. So
Yes,
So
and
keep
sharing
it
your
up.
story, yeah, hopefully we
Yeah.
know will inspire people to be able to like follow their dreams and do what they need to be.
got a lot of things coming up. I always try to live in the moment, so I do things in the moment that help me get there. But I want to grow my Instagram and build more of a following there to help with my real estate business and some other things I've got coming up.
awesome.
So again, we'll have her Instagram in the description, so go and follow her and let her know if you have any real estate needs.
Or if you have any questions about polygamy, I'm kind of an open book. So
yes, you have one
and
more
it helps
awesome
me
source.
remember more.
Well, there you go. There you have it. Thank you, Joanna, and thank you all for being in with us today. And we will talk to you soon.
Talk to y'all soon.